Hello, I'm Nerd, and today we're going to do a simple tutorial on using Tone.js, which is a way of it's a sound library for JavaScript basically. And all we're going to do, we're going to cover the very basic stuff. There's a lot you can do with Tone.js, the website of which is here. Tone.js is a web audio framework for creative interactive music in the browser. So you can do a lot with it. But we're going to just try and trigger off some simple sounds and add an effects, a feedback sort of like effect, delay effect. And this is the final app. Well, it's not really that, it's just like a page we'll get, which demonstrates some of what you can do with Tone.js. So it includes triggering notes from a synth, one click. Then it's got recording as well for sound, which may play up because I'm actually recording sound now, obviously through Twitch, but it should work. And then we've got, so for example, we can also add filter effect. That's just it normal. So that applies a filter effect. And then hopefully we'll be able to record this. This might not work though because obviously I'm using recorder now. I'll stop recording. I recorded the sound. So basically that's what we're going to be doing. So triggering a few synthesized sounds with different notes and the play notes, recording functionality and playback, and just an example of applying an effect. We're going to do this from scratch. I've obviously done it beforehand so that I can make sure it works, but we'll do a new project, right? So if I just open up a new instance of Visual Studio Code, and I'll create a new project, and now I'm going to try and walk you through every part of producing this application, right? So I'm just going to create a new project. I'm going to call it sound tutorial or something. Like I said, there's also going to be, there's a repo for this already called sound trigger, but we'll do it from scratch. So first thing we want to do, so of course, create an index HTML, just a HTML page basically. Just HTML5. Let's get that to like boilerplate. Let me just explain a bit of that because I don't know, people might be at different levels. So declaring the doc type as HTML, and the standard HTML setup, right? So nothing of this should be too intimidating, I don't think. Then we'll obviously create main.css, that's a style sheet which we'll use for it, main.js. I've also separated out the record functionality so that the JS file for that doesn't become too cluttered, right? So index HTML is where the HTML, like the front page you can see basically. Main CSS where we'll write all our styling, main JS is for the main functionality, and then record JS. But first I think we'll just like basically create the references to the script. So when you are, I'm only going to do this like with a CDN. We could obviously do it with Node and a package manager, but this is just easier. So this is the, you put script source, then this URL around the bracket, the quotation marks, which will then load in the Tone.js library. And I'm going to load in our script source equals main.js, which then links to our main.js file, which is empty at the minute, but yeah. And script, same again. Let's change that to record. And then just our style sheet. There we go. It's called main.js, so we just change that to main.js, main CSS. So I'm assuming you'd be familiar with this, but yeah, this is like script sources linking to the script here. If we had it in folders, obviously, it's only you'd put it in folders usually, so you'd have like a JS folder or CSS folder. Because this is quite a small, self-contained little demo, I've just put it in the same directory. And we'll just start modifying some of this. So we've got H1 there, tag for the, I'm going to add some buttons, and I'm also going to add a section class, because like if you look on the version I made before, each section is like sectioned off, and we'll do some styling for that. It's nothing too advanced, right? But yeah, just like helps to separate out the different bits of content in the interface. That first. I'm going to do this 3 times over. And yeah, just going to do 3 of them. Three sections. We've got 3 different sections in the UI, as you can see, and then we're going to add our buttons here. So I'm just going to copy and paste this because it saves time. And I'll explain. So we've got sound 1, sound 2. We've got a button with ID of sound 1, sound 2, sound 3, sound 4, sound 5. It's not going to do much in a minute, but they're there, right? Then the record section, and we'll do this. We've got H3, which is just the heading type. And we've got a button again with an ID of start -record, and then a bit of what the user will see. And we also have this audio playback object with controls, which is that. Nothing too complicated there, I don't think, really. And then finally we have just 2 buttons, so the same as the one above, with ID of filter and big delay. So now if you open up index.html, you should just see some like generic HTML page really with nothing applied. Yeah, so you can see there's no styling applied to it yet, but we've got the same functionality. Nothing's going to play, obviously, because I've not implemented any JavaScript yet, but that's the start of it. So yeah, that's that. So let's start styling it up. So you usually style with CSS, so well, you always do really. So I'm importing a font. I've just like, you can literally make this whatever you want, but just to get it done. And the body here is, well, make this a bit bigger actually. There we go. Yeah, should be a bit easier to read now. So body is just selecting everything's the body selector on the HTML. I've added this reference to font family open sans, which is this font that I've imported in there. I've added a bit of a margin on there, so there's a bit of a margin around the edges of all elements within body. Padding 0, background colour is just white and white. Now that will look wrong if I go on there now, but you'll see that that's changed. They'll look see-through because yeah, the background's basically white, so but as you can see, it's applied that CSS, so that's good. Next, you just want to add custom styling for buttons and the container, which are the container object, container element for the sections. So that's selected with a class that represents a class. Button is just this aquamarine color, background color, just yeah, defines the background color. Border radius is like a bit of like a rounding on the edges. Padding is for internal spacing, like, and then we've got a margin bottom, and then that should now be applied. I've saved it. It should work. There we go. Yep. So you see that's the same as the, obviously the text is a bit different in some places, but You can see it's basically the same CSS style that's been applied there as the demo example. All I need to do actually is go into my index.html and add a heading for apply effects. So I'll do that. So that's that bit out of the way. Not much really there to talk about. It's just basically setting out a HTML page. Let's get into the main thing now. So this is where we're going to actually start using the Tone.js library, and this is how I've done it. So I've created two global variables right at the top of the document, which basically means it can be accessed from everywhere. It's not like, and that's for synth, and then it generates tone synth, and then to destination. Same for polysynth. Now, one of the other main functions you want to do is play a sound with a specific note. So you create a function called play sound. You pass a parameter of a note, which could be like C4, C5, whatever note you want. It just gives it that extra flexibility. You could like hard set it, but it makes less sense. I think it doesn't make any sense really. And then where there's that synth variable above, I'm going to reassign that to new tone synth, that one to destination, and then this. Right, and then we're going to do this synth dot trigger attack, and we're going to do this. We're going to pass it in the note with the parameter above, which could be C5, C6, whatever, and we're going to add it now. Then we're going to do this synth trigger release, not that bit, just the now. Okay. Now we're going to have to add some event handlers for different buttons, so I'll show you that quickly. So there's going to be eventually about 7 of these, but we've got document, we're doing the selection by ID, so we've got on here we've got the sound 1, sound 2, sound 3, sound 4, etc, etc. We're doing the document, get an element by ID, sound 1 in this example was asynchronous, because we did the await tone start, which just helps with like basically audio blocking stuff that browsers can do. We play sound, we can pass it a C4. The filter, I'll just comment that out for now, but let's just see that in action. Should work. So now if I refresh this, why didn't it play? I've obviously written something wrong. Oh, so it's something to do with, I'll call this sound 1, didn't I? ID sound 1. Why is it null? One tick. Sound 1. No, do that. Check second. What is that? Fresh. Yeah. ID sound 1. Just check. ID sound 1. Yeah. It's not fast, isn't it? No. What? Where's it gone? Why? Try to do this. Try to do this. Shit. Oh. What are you doing? What am I doing? Just sound 1. Yeah. Where's it not? Why no? Since you're there, some people ID somewhat. Seriously? What? Synth. That's it. Yes, oh, synth from tone to destination. Tone now, sync, trigger attack now. Is that it? What? What's wrong with that? I've done that already. Oh. What? What's that? Seems to not be finding tone for some reason, which is odd. I'll try this. Well, I don't know why that happened, but yeah, for some reason it wasn't loading the library before. I don't know why. Anyway, we can proceed. So yeah, you got the element by ID, and then you do it obviously 1 for each one. So you can do 2. So you got 4 there. We've also got 1 for notes, so we'll add that too. and then we can play different notes. So for example, if I change this to C6, you should hear it go up. There you go. And then if you could change it to like, I don't know, C2, be much lower. And you can play around with that to your heart's content, make whatever you want. So this is supposed to be C4, then I think it's C5. But yeah, that'll basically do what it's meant to do. It's triggering the sound, D4, and then G1. Like, there's no real logic behind the notes that are playing. I'm just using it to demonstrate. You got some. There's no notes there yet, but yeah. Okay, what about adding a filter? So a nice little filter that we can just do this. So you get that weird filtering effect when you click it. And you can obviously get creative with this, make reverb effects, chained weird effects, whatever. Like it's down to you really at the end of the day. So we got that done. We're going to create a new function called filter. That's it. Filter. Synth. I've got my autocomplete thing on here, which helps. This is I have Copilot on this computer, so it tries to help me out. And this is actually not exactly what I want to do, but let's just do this. So we're going to pass in synth, which is that object right at the top. Let's say let variable of type tone synth. There we go. Now I've just copied and pasted a bunch of code, so I'll explain a little bit what that does. We're adding a high pass effect, and then to the destination channel, and then specifying constant feedback delay, some of the settings, and then connecting it to this via connect filter, and then that, and then hopefully, and then what we do is when that button is clicked, which I have to add an event listener for, I believe it's called just filter. So we change the ID of the button we want to target, and we call that function, ding ding, pass in the synth, and then that, it's already actually there below. And then now if I do it on this working one, it applies a filter. So you get that sort of effect. And obviously you can modify that as well, so you can change it. So if I want to add tons of feedback, this will probably sound horrible, but like I've had to reload it. Oh wait, it's between 1 and 2. Sorry, that's a maximum. And then I'll make this bigger. Like that. It should be a much more profound effect. There's much more echo in there. Goes on for ages. That's actually pretty cool. Let's just start playing some proper techno with this. But you get the idea. That's actually quite cool. I quite like that. That's actually pretty cool. Put it down a little bit, but yeah, and then maybe like 0.8. And you can read up on all what that specifically is doing. I've not done a recording yet, but yeah, you can do that too. Just get that note. That's actually quite nicely. That sound. Like a bit of echo. Anyway, that's that bit done. So that's fairly simple, right? I'm going to leave it at that for the sound stuff. That's basically how you load in the sound. There are many ways to use this library, but like again, I don't want to make this too of a long-winded one. There there is record. So I am literally just going to copy and paste a bunch of code here and explain it as much as I can, because this is probably one of the more complicated things in this, but it is obviously quite cool to be able to record what you are making. So in here we have a start record button there with ID, and then in our JavaScript we add a query selector, start record, add an event listener. There's some checking for if Tone's actually running, and then it gets the context of Tone's web audio API. And then we have an asynchronous function here called start recording. It grabs the destination, which is the context from Tone, it connects to it for the master output. That's some settings for like quality, basically, bitrate, etc. There's a media recorder option that's set up, which is part of the web audio API, I think, on data available. And then yeah, basically I don't want to go too much into that. That's just like a nice thing to have. I honestly just was like, how do you do this? Copied and pasted the code. We can now check if that works. So if I go start recording, refresh it first. Start recording. There we go. It's recording. Stop recording, and now I should be able to listen to that back. Yep, there goes the recording now. That's it. So the only thing really left in this tutorial is if we want to trigger multiple notes in one, which I've done an example of. We'll do that like this. So like with the other ones, we basically create a function for it. I've just copied a bunch of that stuff there. Synth poly is the unused one that we've got up there, so we're going to start using that. I'll make it slightly different to the other pattern I used before, just for because it's different then. Okay. Trigger an attack and trigger release. And I'm going to change these to like G4, and this is like a sequence. So this triggers a sequence of notes. And this is where you can get really creative with it, obviously, like if you really want to like play with and I have to also add another event listener, so I'll just do that now. I think I called it sound 5, so I'll just copy sound 4 because you don't want to go sound 4 or sound 5 rather, and then instead of we want to trigger the play notes, I think. Or let me just check. Yeah, so play notes. There we go. Play notes. And I don't need the G1 in there, just needs to trigger it because it's already, all the notes are already defined in it. Oh, not there. Bloody hell. This should have been here. Ah, do that again. Sound 5. Play notes. We don't need the parameter in there. Though we could obviously redo this function so it accepts whatever notes you put in there, but again, for now it's not a big deal. So we've got a little message there that says play notes. And that should be sound 5, not sound 45. Okay, now so you get like a sequence of notes that's played, one of which seems to go on for a long time for some reason. And you can play with these settings, you know, like And if you also want to apply the filter onto this, you can pass in the polysynth. It's probably a bit loud, I'm going to just refresh that. Probably can't hear me. So if you want to also apply that to the polysynth, you can just call the same that, and I think it's uppercase, no, synth poly. Okay, synth poly. Synth poly, which would then also apply it to that. You do this. So then it's applying that effect onto the polysynth as well. Get a big delay. Yep, so that's a basic introduction to using Tone.js. You know, just like triggering synthesizers. There's tons you can get into with it. Like there's obviously you can create a lot more interface tools. Like pitching is something you might want to do. So you could have an interface for pitching down. It's pretty well documented, so you can just explore it. You know, you've got all this sort of thing. So you can go really deeper into it if you want, but that's like a basic way to set it up, just with a CDN, and start playing with it. You know, as you can tell, I just used the generic pattern they've got there, but you can obviously get creative with it. You can also like get samples loaded in too, so that can be useful. So if you want to do a sampler, there's an example here on how to do that. With a specific sound. Like, I mean, I could try this. This would probably work actually if it's loading from a. So, for example, if I want to create a function for a sampler, you could even, you know, give it a parameter so it's got like a, like you just feed it basically a sound, I guess. But anyway, we'll just try this example. Function sampler, blah blah blah, new sampler, that. And then we can just see if this works. So if I go trigger sample, I'll create a new button called trigger sample, and that'll be a nice little extra anyway. Triggers play sample, and let's call it that. I'm gonna go place sample, play sample. Did I call it sampler? What did I call it again? Yeah, sampler. Let's see if that works for start. There you go. And if you wanted to apply, we could also we could possibly do this. This would be interesting to see if this works. I don't know if it will, but just see if it does work. No, it doesn't. I don't think that would. Anyway, that calls the sampler, and then you can create samples there, and like I think we could probably you could play around with that as well. But if you want to load in your own samples. For example, you could do something like base URL and you could copy in a custom sound. So let me just try this. Like URL, sample URL. And I'll try load in a local sample. So if I just go to I've got some sample libraries here somewhere. This is just like an additional thing. This is basically the tutorial over, but it'd be just interesting to show this. Look, I'll just get, I don't know, whatever this is. Copy. No, not that. And I'll paste this in here. It's just this, that. Rename it to, not a shortcut. Bloody hell. I do not want to do that. Let's find that one. Not that. Copy the actual file. And it should be possible, I think, to load the sound locally. I think. just open this up. Get rid of that, it's confusing. Rename it to just C. Just call it C for now. And I think should be able to just do this. C dot, what is it? Wav. I think might work. Oh yeah. So yeah, do this. Swap it for the parameter. Sample URL would then be, in this instance, it would just be sampler and C, capital C dot wav. Now, I'm not sure if this will work, but hopefully it does. No, I can't find it, can I? Unable to fetch cwav c4. Why is it doing that? I've obviously done something a little wrong there. Oh, right, yeah. Okay, so. Oh, yeah. So. Yeah, it's like loading in different. There's different notes it's loading in there, so that's not really how you do it. Anyway, I won't go too much into that because then it's just me problem solving live, which is pretty boring. I hope that's been useful and interesting. Gives you a few tips on just getting the basics running. You know, like you create some like weird, interesting. Like obviously this sounds like a bit like ass because I've not really done much with it. I'm just playing notes and applying a filter which I've not really worked on, but it gives you a starting point, right? So yeah, hope that was interesting. I'm Noir Nerd. Give it a like if you like it, and yeah, cheers. Thanks for watching.